Hey guys, GT Machine here. I'm going to install the IPD intake plenum for my Cayman GT4, and then I got it from a guy secondhand. He came with some extra straps, the two gaskets here, and then also the vacuum tube for the valve cover. Also came with another intake runner vacuum actuator, the map sensor, and then it didn't really look the best, so I had my friend powder coated here. He powder coated silver to give it kind of like an OEM look, and it came out fantastic, as you can see here. If you want some powder coating work done by him, just post up and just leave a comment below if you want some powder coating work from him. So let's get this installed. And I also got the throttle body cover. The throttle body's on its way, it's not here yet. And I also want to say shout out to IPD. They sent me the O-rings that go up here for no cost. So I just want to say thank you for them. So they got it secondhand. The guy said the O-ring was shot. So I reached out to them. I was fully expecting to pay for these, but they said, here, we'll just ship them to you. No big deal. So I made sure I ordered the throttle body from them. So I just want to say thanks to IPD. All right, let's go ahead and get this thing installed. We'll start removing the old one and install the new one. All right, guys, let's get to moving the intake manifold. Let me go ahead and get in here. I got all my tools ready, set up. First things first, you want to pull back the lock on your map sensor. Slide it roll back. Sometimes you might need a little pick to get it off there, a little pocket screwdriver, and push down on the tab, and it'll move out like so. Your evap line here, it's got two white tabs. Just squeeze them, and it pulls right off like that. And then same thing with your breather hose. There's two black tabs. It's actually serrated where you want to push down and pull off. Sometimes this might take a little effort to do. You might need a screwdriver to get it off. And then they come off just like that. So it pulls off. Sometimes you need a little finesse to get it off. It's not a big deal. And got this line back here. It's clipped onto the back of the intake. Just pop it out. And it's a coolant line. You want to make sure you don't damage it or crack it because you'll have coolant coming everywhere. And then come back to the vacuum clip. It's got a metal clip on it. All you do is you push it in and pull the connector straight up. It pops right off. And then just tuck that out of the way. And we'll go ahead and start removing the throttle body clamps. The clamps hold the throttle body are 7mm for the boot. Usually I like to run them all the way out to make sure they're completely loose to give you all the freedom so it doesn't hang you up. So you got, on the GT4, you got 3 of them, and I think the same thing with the Boxster Spider, but I think with the smaller engines, it only intakes air from the one side. So you have to pay attention to that. And then you can access the other 2 clamps from underneath. You just stick your tool just like this underneath, and they're both facing the right direction. Just make sure when you go to install the upfit, you face in the right direction so they're easy to get to. I do the same thing with them, run them just about all the way out so they're easy to free up and then they don't hang up on anything. And then sometimes they're stuck on the rubber, so you gotta push them a little bit. If you squeeze them with that open, you usually pop them off the rubber and get them free. And then in order to get the boot off, you might need a pick or a small screwdriver or what they call a hose pick. Pretty much you want to slide underneath the rubber and then slide it down and around the throttle body to pretty much loosen the seal. because over heat cycles and everything, the rubber does get set on there, especially with the clamp. So I just turned it sideways in there for now, just to help me get access to the lower throttle body connector that's down there. We got to remove. It's got a clip on the top and the bottom of the throttle body. So I think we might take the intake loose and get back at that one. Might make it a little easier. So let's go ahead and loosen the clamps that hold the plenum in place. So you want to get your T30. I'm using extension to make it a little easier. One thing you want to do is you want to run the screw all the way out, because we got to take the clamps completely off. Once they're off, we might need to pry these up, but we'll see. Nope, they just come off. It's just a little force, they come right off. There's one. Oh. There's the second one. Take these, set them aside for now. And then the underneath ones, we might have to use some force on these. Yeah, the bottom ones are just absolutely stuck, so. So all I did was, at where the clamp clips onto the bottom one, just take a screwdriver, push it in there, and then pry it backwards a little bit, and just be easy with it, and it'll pop off the front side, and then we'll do the same thing to the back side. That one's off. It's probably best to take a screwdriver and just run it underneath the rubber just to make sure it releases okay. Just because if you do have to reuse these, you don't want to tear them. So you just gently run a screwdriver along them just to make sure they release all right, so they're not stuck. And then same thing on this side here. You just go down gently so you don't have any issues. All you do is you're just separating and trying to break the seal, just so it comes off easy. Let's see if that loosens it up enough. Yep. So now I can rotate and pull the throttle body upwards with the whole intake plenum. But we don't want to take it out just yet because we still connect it with the vacuum lines in the back. So we want to just make sure we get it up enough. Just make sure we break all the seals. I think the better portion, since this is still stuck to the bottom a little bit, is to pry the gasket off of the plenum. We'll lift up enough so we can remove the throttle body. So what you want to do is come in from the front side and then push on both clips and then just push it backwards and it comes down. There's also a clip that clips the harness onto the throttle body. We want to remove that. And we also want to watch our coolant line as well. We don't want to break that either. And then I pulled too hard on it, so you want to just pull it up enough to get behind it and pull off the vacuum line of the actuator solenoid for the intake flap. But it looks like the line released itself, so I got lucky and didn't break it there. So we just want to finesse the coolant line over the intake manifold, rotate it sideways, and it should come up and out. There might be stuff clipped onto the bottom of it. Yeah, looks like one of the vacuum lines was clipped on the bottom of the intake runner, or the intake manifold. So there we have it. There's the intake out with the throttle body. We'll just set this right here for right now, and then we'll get the old throttle body boot out of here. So there's the boot that's got to come out too, because we got to replace this with the larger one for the GT3 throttle body. So one thing you want to do is before if you're going to reuse these gaskets, we're going to want to clean them up. There's oil in them from the intake, just because of how the system works with the breather. We're going to want to clean the gaskets and make sure they're okay. So we'll go ahead and take them off. All right, we'll hop off, clean up everything, and get everything reinstalled. All right, let's go ahead and get this thing started and back installed. So I checked these gaskets. I'm not going to use the ones that I got. I'd say these ones were in better condition, and I just cleaned them up, and there's no issues. So we'll go ahead and get them back installed. One thing I think will be easier to get it installed again easier is remove the harness bolts. That way, give us a little bit more room and able to play with things more. So go ahead and get the one side gasket reinstalled. All you do is fit it right in the groove. It pretty much lines itself up. I'll go ahead and install it the same way it came out. Make sure everything's aligned the same way to get the nice same snug fit. Then once that's in, we'll go ahead and slide the bottom clamp in. It just takes a little bit of finesse. There's this oil fill tube underneath that gives you low clearance, so just takes a little bit and it goes right in. And then usually on these you can see the indents of where the clamps were, so I just want to put it back the same way just to make sure it's okay, even though it shouldn't make a difference. So instead of fighting, I'm going to go ahead and remove this side of the intake plenum off of here. That should make it a lot easier instead of fighting it with these shifter cables and everything else in here. And all the bolts are easily accessible, so I'm going to go ahead and remove it from there. Ah, foobar. Well, that wasn't good. I dropped the clamp all the way down below. So now we're gonna have to get it out. So let me just check the gaskets in the intake manifold, make sure they're still good. Usually you want to check these, make sure they're still protruded, and if those, as long as they are, they're fine to be reused, and it'll crush again and seal properly. I'll just go ahead and give them a quick wipe down. I'll place this aside, but yeah, doing it this way is so much easier. Than fighting with the shifter cables and everything else. Oh, nuts. How am I gonna get that? Fell all the way. I see it. Ooh. Luckily, I was able to grab it, so you just want to be careful. Make sure you don't drop things because they will end up in that tray, and then you got to jack the car up. So we'll go ahead and place this aside. And then this gives me a good chance to check the valves. Looks like there's a little bit of carbon buildup, nothing crazy, but you can definitely tell that without the normal injectors, there's a direct injection now, it builds up the carbon pretty quick. Let me go ahead and wipe the ports down so when we do install it, get a nice clean seal. Alright, that's on. So then now we'll go ahead and slide this down in. Good grief. It's still a tight fit, but definitely makes things a lot easier. Oh, there we go. There we go. Looks like she's in now. It just takes a little bit of time and then she'll go right in. And then one thing you want to make sure is make sure the gasket's all the way around it. If that's the case, we can go ahead and go ahead and put the clamps on. Since those are started, let me go ahead and tighten back down the intake manifold. Before you tighten it back down, you want to make sure you start all of the bolts so you don't cross-thread anything. I've started the 4 middle ones. Let me start the outside ones. For the first time doing it, about to say that made it so much easier than trying to take apart the whole center console and move the shift lines and everything else. This was definitely a lot easier to do it this way. But yeah, searching all the forums and everything, everybody said just loosen the shift cables up, but taking off the passenger side intake runner, so much more easier. All right, and then don't forget to connect your vacuum actuator back to the vacuum line here in the back. Actually, I'll tighten the clamps to the intake runners first. So just check everything one more time, make sure nothing's shifted, and go ahead and snug the clamps down. So everything's nice and tight, so you get no leaks. Now we can connect the intake runner control. Get the harness connector, and then when you push it back down in place and hear the click, it's on. Here, just got my throttle body in from IPD. Here's the 84 millimeter throttle body from the GT3. We're gonna put on our Plenum here on the GT4. So let's go ahead and wrap up the install and get this thing wrapped up. put the boot in here just so we can get it in there before we put the throttle body in, so I can snake it around so it doesn't, I'm fighting it to try to get it in there. Go ahead and put the rubber seal in the intake manifold, or plenum. It's not really a manifold. Just presses down into the groove, and once it's in there, we go ahead and put the throttle body on and get the bolts started. Helps to have the bolts in here because getting in and out here is just a pain in the butt. So might as well have everything ready the first time. So I got the one bolt left. I gotta get a ratchet to get that one on. This is what's helped, having worked in the automotive and diesel industry as a technician for over 10 years. I've acquired certain tools that make certain jobs easier. But basic hand tools would make this a little bit of a pain in the butt. But when you have tools that get to certain angles and can get into tight spots, it makes it a lot easier. See, like right here is what I use to get that last bolt. All right, so we can come around and get the wiring harness clip on. Still have the old clip on there from the old harness. They provided me one here, so we'll go ahead and get it clipped on here. And once you hear the click, it's seated properly. And I'll get it pushed back into the retaining clip on the bottom of the throttle body. All right, now we're ready to put the boot on. So I'm going to open these clamps up the first possible, and then I'm going to stick them on the plastic portions of the airbox, and hopefully that helps. Where it'll help hold the clamps from falling, because you don't want them to fall. Then you have to be hunting them down. All right, there's one side on. And one thing you want to pay attention to is make sure you're always watching the clamps so they don't fall. Because then you'll be able to hunt and chase them down from inside the car. And sometimes that gets no fun. It's like trying to find your 10mm socket. Everybody loses those. So now I'm going to take the clamp on the throttle body and slide it actually onto the hose and back so I can get the hose onto the throttle body itself. This is where a hose pick would come in handy again to help get it on there, but I don't feel like getting out of the trunk, so I'm just going to fight it a little bit. It's almost on. Just got to go onto the bottom. Oh, I do have a screwdriver here, though. That'll definitely help me. I think I can get it on. It's just the last bottom spot. It's like an inch. It's not on yet. There it goes. Just check it all the way around with your fingers, make sure it's on, and then you can slide everything on and then into position. Once everything's into position, just double check everything, make sure it's on nice and snug. It's not kinked or anything. So here's the coolant hose where it sits on the manifold right here. I just got this piece of hose, cut it down its side on one side. And then what you want to do is just work it around the hose. And then once it's on like so, go ahead and put the clip back, and then just slide the hose into the spot where it's protecting everything so it doesn't rub. And if it does rub, it's rubbing on the hose, it's not going to damage anything. And then I got a zip tie, and I'll take and zip tie this solenoid here. Looks like you can zip tie it around the power the starter wire that goes from the power block to either the starter or the alternator. Or it looks like this one comes from the batteries to the power distribution block in here in the back. Just zip tie it a little bit. It doesn't have to be super tight, just to where it doesn't bounce around in here. And then you just cut off the slack. There's no mount on the plenum for this one, so there you go. So pretty much everything's done. We'll come back tomorrow and put the throttle body on. Check the clamps one more time, make sure everything's tight before you close it all up. The worst thing you want to do is have the clamps fall off. Then you're sucking in dirty air. Alright, so that's all done. We go ahead and clip everything back on, our other hoses. Just make sure when you clip these on, you listen for the click, and it lets you know everything's on. Engage the lock. One thing I like to do is make sure, give everything a once over, make sure everything's connected and secured. All right, so pretty much there's the install right there. There's the throttle body, there's the IPD plenum, intake boot, everything's installed. So let's go ahead and get it fired up. All right, here's first ignition key on. So one thing it said, you want to turn the key on and leave it on for about a minute to have the throttle body align and learn. All right, we're back here after about a minute. I did hear the throttle body go through a sweep, so let's go ahead and let's give it one key cycle. And we'll go ahead and turn it on, and then we'll go ahead and start her up. So it went through its heat up cycle for the catalytic converters. RPM seemed to be okay, but it was right there below 1200. And it went down to idle, and everything seems pretty smooth. So let's we'll give it a rev here. Sounds pretty good, but I'd say no issues at all. We'll take it for a little quick spin, make sure everything's okay, and we'll get everything back together. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like this video, like and subscribe, and I'll have more coming up once I get all the rest of my parts in. Got the Cobb tune coming, Soul competition sport headers. Thanks, guys.